Premier Notley and her NDP government folded in deciding to stop any retaliatory measures against the New Democrat opposition to the Trans Mountain Pipeline in British Columbia. The BC New Democrats are playing chess, while their Alberta counterparts are playing checkers. The BC government is playing the long game, and the Alberta Premier is playing the short game. The BC government is showing strength, and the Alberta government is showing weakness. This pipeline is essential to our economic future. Right now, we're underselling our oil to the Americans by nearly 50%. We're losing tens of billions of dollars, money that could help us to pay for healthcare and education and create good jobs in Alberta. Instead, we have this BC government openly hostile to our ability to export Alberta's key product, our environmentally responsible energy that could help us to get a fair global price and create sustainable jobs for our future. Since last July, when the NDP came to power in BC, I called on our Alberta government to get tough, to have a fight-back strategy, to show that there will be repercussions if British Columbia jeopardizes the construction of that pipeline. At first, Premier Notley mocked and ridiculed me for this position, and then recently seemed to come around in the last 3 weeks. But now, in the face of this obvious, transparent delay tactic by the BC government, I regret to see that Premier Notley has folded. I've said from day one that we're prepared to put aside partisanship to work with the Alberta government on crafting a motion, for example, that could be supported by all parties in the legislature. For example, a motion calling on the BC government to stop its anti-energy, anti-development strategy, a motion supporting a fight-back strategy from Alberta, and a motion calling on Justin Trudeau to stop this trade war today by invoking the federal government's constitutional power to do so. Instead, what we've done is to back right off, giving British Columbia what it wants. This week, Kinder Morgan said that they will not be spending, they'll be spending on this pipeline at a reduced level towards completion until they have more clarity and they're sure that they can complete what they've started. Yesterday, they didn't get more clarity, they got more uncertainty. This judicial reference by the BC government could take 2 to 4 years. They could begin at the BC Supreme Court, which is the trial court, go to the appeals court, go to the Supreme Court of Canada. That could take 5 years. The last time we had a judicial reference by BC government, it was in the polygamy case. It took 762 days for a resolution, and this question is arguably even more complex in law. So we're talking about at least 2 years of further delays. The strategy of the pipeline opponents is death through delay. That's the strategy being pursued by the BC government in court. We don't need talk. We don't need delays. We need action. So I'm calling on Premier Notley to demand that the federal government step in right now to get Justin Trudeau back from his costume tour of India and to act in our economic interests right now by invoking Section 9210C of the Constitution, declaring that the Trans Mountain Pipeline is in the national interest. That could put an end to any of these BC delay tactics, and we should not be backing off on pushback measures like the wine boycott, which was at least an attention getter. So I'm disappointed to see what the Premier is doing, but you know who's happy? The radical environmental organizations that are actively engaging in civil disobedience to block this legal and approved pipeline. STAND, formerly known as Forest Ethics, one of these radical anti-pipeline organizations, has come out and endorsed what Premier Horgan did yesterday because they understand that delay will eventually equal the death of any pipeline like it did for Energy East.